What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Surf and Sales Podcast. I am Scott Leese, founder of Scott Leese Consulting and co-founder of the Surf and Sales Summit. And I'm here with my good friend and partner, co-founder in both the podcast and the Surf and Sales Summit, Richard Harris, coming to you live from California. What's up, Richard?
Dude, I haven't even told you this. Everything is good. We finally finished the remodel. I don't think I even told you. Yeah, so I'll have to send you some new pics. Yeah. Wow. It's dope, dude. It's dope.
I guess the next question that I have is, when does the new remodel begin?
It doesn't, dude. We were so over budget. Like, don't even ask me.
That's never stopped you before. I will believe this. If you get to January without starting a new house project, I'll be surprised.
That will not happen. I will just tell you that let's just say my CEO and CRO are definitely aware of every deal in my pipeline.
It's time for you to go. Time for you to go raise some venture funds.
It might be. I might be hitting. I think I've hit the 16-year mark as opposed to the 16-month mark. So I hope I'm still here.
Goodness gracious! We are brought to you by a couple sponsors that we appreciate their support and their help. One of whom is the Tech Sales Accelerator. A great place to launch your six-figure tech sales career in 2024 and 2025 soon. You don't need prior experience. You don't need a college degree. Check them out at techsalesaccelerator.com. And Richard will tell everybody about our other sponsor.
Yeah, it's a new sponsor for us. Our good friend Brandon Santos over at Peel. It's Get Peel AI. And he's really finally cracked the code on finally aligning the sales messaging and the marketing messaging together, and making sure that it's not this spam cannon, right? I've changed the phrase of spray and pray, PRAY, to spray and pray, PREY, because that's what it really is. We just prey upon these people, and they've just done a really good job with it. So congrats to Brandon for all his success, and go check him out at getpeel.ai. All right, back to the more fun parts, although I wish we could have the green room conversation in here, but we're not allowed. So we're gonna have to button it up.
We're not allowed. We're gonna have to get our professional act together. We are here with a friend of mine. He is the CEO of a company called Signpost here in Austin, Texas, and former sales leader extraordinaire. I guess he's still a sales leader of sorts. I guess some CEOs can be sales leaders. Anyways,
nice
Luke Wilson,
compliment.
Luke Wilson, CEO of Signpost. What's up, man? Welcome to the show.
Great to be here, man. Just looking forward to this, and have looked forward to this for some time. So appreciate you.
Awesome. Well, let's start with what the heck is Signpost. It'll give you a chance to tell everybody what the company is, what y'all are up to, and maybe you can give a little context in terms of the stage of the company and that type of stuff, so people know where you're coming from.
Well, I think it's the journey that is Signpost, right?
The journey. So we'll call it the journey.
The journey that is Signpost. So we are a company, like many companies, that has finally figured out we need to be really, really good at one thing, right? And really execute at a high level at one thing. Because if you look at the journey over the past 10 to 12 years of Signpost, we've done everything. We've done, digital marketing. We've done email. We've done reviews. We've done just all these different pieces. And I would say executed part of the way and then jumped into the next biggest thing. And so we went through a revision here in this current year and said, okay, look, we are going to adjust to the times. We're going to continue to be very passionate about serving small to medium business entrepreneurs, but we're going to serve them in one way, and we're not going to stray from that, right? We're going to get good at this. And we chose the communication path. We interviewed a lot of customers. We interviewed a lot of churned customers to find out what we weren't doing correctly. And we found out that they rely on us to answer a telephone call and facilitate being able to interact with both prospects and current customers as quickly as possible, right? Because most of our customer base is either in the field working or they're running a business, right? And so they fall down when it comes to speedy communication, which all of us, if I have an AC that's out here in the Great Republic of Texas, I want a response in about 6 seconds, right? I want to know that there's somebody coming to help me, and let's get this thing fixed. And so our customer base feels that pressure, and we help to partner with them and be able to take that off.
I have a question on that. The first, we all hear this. We talk to a bunch of clients that we lost, right? And I think that's often better than the ones that you win. right? Because you dig in. Was that hard? Like, I think a lot of founders, depending on the stage of their company and even CEOs, don't want to have that conversation. They know they should, but maybe they're afraid of it. They're intimidated by it. They feel like they might be whining. Like, did you have any, did you have a mental hurdle to get over for that? Or were you like, fuck it, I don't care?
So everybody that knows me will say it's the latter approach
Right.
because so I have a bit of an advantage being raised by a gentleman who was a small to medium business entrepreneur. He was also a former Navy SEAL that served in Vietnam and really gave you no opportunity to have any ego whatsoever growing up, right? Because he would make sure and let you know that like you were an ant in the grand scheme of things, right? I remember there was a time that he put me in front of our entire retail automobile dealership and said, "If you want to know what an idiot looks like, here's your idiot." Right. So like there's
Wow.
not there's a bit of a callus that I have. And I will also say I am a competitive athlete at nature. My body is far from competitive athlete now, but I want to win the game. I don't care about being right. I just could care less. I want to win the game, right? And so for me, also, I wasn't the founder, so I didn't have that piece where I had made decisions at a prior point in time, and now I have to go back on those decisions. There was a sense of urgency when I joined the team to figure it out now. And the quickest way to figure it out is start talking to the people that you turned, right? And just say, okay, look, we've got to I need to figure this out. So I would say 50% I had a unique circumstance because I didn't really have any prior ego in the decision making process. But the other 50% is it's honestly how I was raised is there's no you've got skin in the game, you need to win. You can't let your ego be a part of the decision making process. Just get in and find out where you're screwing up and let's go fix it.
I talked about something similar earlier today, actually, with somebody. With so many people, regardless of role, get, I think, hung up on the ego aspect of like wanting to be right,
Yes.
and lose sight of, don't we just want to win?
Yes, correct. I agree.
And the context of it was actually a mistake, probably more than one mistake that I made. And there's multiple companies that I left. And after I left, I watched over years as their valuation tanked by 50%. And in the early days of this, my ego and attitude was a little bit of like, well, shows you.
Right.
It was a little bit of like, I guess you needed me, I guess I knew what I was doing a little bit. And then as I got older and matured and understood how things work more, it was like, wait a second, I just lost a bunch of money. That was actually
Yep.
stupid. What can I do moving forward to it when and if I do leave this thing in good hands and ensure its continued success? Because I'd rather just win than be
Yes.
right.
Yes. I have two paths that I went down that were thrown at me. It's two statements. You'll hear me talk a lot about my grandfather and my father, both for two completely different reasons. My father used to goat me all the time, and he and I were at a constant, like, he was who taught me how to beat my sales compensation plan because every time he would give me a new plan because he thought he was paying me too much, I would say, I'm going to beat this anyway. Right. So let's go. Give me whatever you want to give me. I'll beat it again. Right. And he used to always come in, and when I got to a management level within our organization, he would come in, he would say, you do X, Y, Z, and I'd be all pissed off. It'd be 11 o'clock at night. And he'd say, you know what, being a millionaire is overrated anyway. And he'd walk out and then he would come back and he would go, no, it's not. Right. Just right. And I would just be like, I hate you. Right. Like, but he would like, he was trying to teach you like, here's the end game. And my grandfather, I'm sure he copied this off of somebody, but he would always say, you can be right or you can be rich. Which one do you want to be? Like, you can be right. Doesn't matter, because I've heard other people also use that. So I know it's not unique to him. Right. But he used to always say, which one do you want to be, man? You be right or be rich. You tell me, you pick it. It's your journey. It's your life. Nobody's trying to tell you what to do here, knucklehead, but where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And I think, Scott, to your point, I've had those same things. I thought every organization I ever left was going to fall through the ground anyway, because I was the greatest thing they ever had. Right. And when you start looking at it, you're like, man, you're shooting your own self in the foot because you're either harming people you care about or you're losing equity value. Right. Like either way,
Yeah.
That's probably not the right mindset to have.
I just want to say thanks to Scott for not throwing me under the bus, because this is one of my biggest battles. I will call Scott and say, I need some advice. And Scott will say,
you want to be right?
Or do you want to win?
There you go.
And my answer because I'm greedy, is I want to be both.
I want both.
It's not,
yeah.
I want both. Right. So for those listening, heed these great words of wisdom and know that I still struggle with this daily. So
yeah, I'm trying to apply this methodology to my romantic life as well. Because do you want to be right or do you want to be in a relationship?
Correct.
One of two choices.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
I'm greedy. I want to be both. Good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck with that.
My experience dictates that that's not possible.
So yeah.
You know what I'm learning too, Scott? I'm learning so this CEO role is very hands-on CEO role, right? You're in marketing, you're in product, you're in engineering. I'm looking at every sprint detail. I was on calls yesterday on the sales side of things. Like you're very, very, very detailed in it. And what I'm learning is you might fundamentally be right, but someone else could also fundamentally be right. You're just coming from two different paths, right? And so how much do you want to give to get the execution, right? Because when this person owns the execution, but you're trying to tell them, hey, look, I think I'm right. Well, you kind of are, but so are they, right? Like I think as I've gotten in this role, I've learned, oh, wait a minute, there really are more than one right, right?
Like Luke has been listening to my therapy conversations. Listening to my therapy conversations with my wife. Like, this is the essence of raising children.
Yes, it's absolutely what it is. Yeah, 100%.
So where did your entrepreneurship spirit come from? Was it from your dad? Was it
Grandpa?
Relentless? Your grandpa?
Nah, Grandpa was my best friend. Grandpa, little Sicilian dude, 5'5", immigrated to this country with my uncle Celeste and my aunt Frida. They were both under 15. My grandpa came and was 17, joined the Marine Corps to get his citizenship in World War II, and came back and was running moonshine up and down Interstate 63 in the Midwest. And somebody gave him the idea to take cash and funnel it into a car dealership because that's a great way to hide your money. Like I can say all this now because the most limitations.
It's just the most Italian immigration story of all time, by the way. Mirrors my family history almost identically.
Yes. Did your family run moonshine? Did your family run moonshine?
Dude, they ran everything, dude.
Yes.
I've never heard. This is a story I've not heard. So it's surf and sales. I definitely want to hear some of these stories.
Yeah. They ran everything. They ran Buffalo in Western New York. Let's put it that way.
Fantastic. We had Joe Venini's Panther Piss going from Clinton, Indiana on up into Chicago, Illinois, right? And it's my grandpa he had a 7th grade education. He was not book smart, but he was people smart, man. He could read and he knew who he needed to have involved. All these little things like if you won't eat a meal with me, I'm not going to do business with you. Like he knew all these different things that it just made me want to be in control of my own destiny. Even if I failed, I don't care about that. Like I had a guy ask me the other day, what's worse? Do you fear failure or want to win? Like what is your driver? And I'm like, I've never failed in my life because if you just adjust, you change and you keep going, right? Failure means you stop. That means you just fundamentally, nope, I'm done. And I can't say I've actually failed because I've never just stopped. I've maybe pivoted or moved or changed directions. And I think that all came from him. He's like, you got no choice, man. You got no choice. Who else is going to come help you out? There's nobody else going to help you out. You need to go. You got to make it happen.
You have made the pivot from being a sales leader to a CEO. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different questions that I have about this change, about this pivot. and one of the questions is, what have you learned now about being a CEO that you didn't know and didn't have the right perspective on when you were a VP of sales?
So I've actually had to go back and apologize to a few CEOs that I worked for when I was a VP of sales and when I was a CRO, because in those roles, I believed I had it figured out and this idiot just needed to get on board. Right? Like, God dang it, man, come on, make a decision and let's move. With the Signpost as a team, we've had a challenging time this year because of just management overhaul, business change. We sold off part of the business. So you're kind of left with this just abomination of a soup that you have to turn into a meal. And it has required me to be both thoughtful, think about multiple different perspectives. And I've got sales guys over here that I'm like, okay, I understand your perspective, but do you understand you're creating just a horrible work-life balance for my CS team and onboarding team over here? And do you fundamentally understand that the engineering team is under-resourced? So I would love to hire more salespeople. I'd love to throw out more spiffs. I'd love to give you a better comp plan. But, all the things that I always thought that CEOs were not making decisions quick enough and executing. And the key truth of the matter is, I used to work 5 days a week as a CRO. I work 7 days a week as a CEO because I'm always concerned about the health of the business, right? And it just, I think that's probably the most humbling piece for me is it is a way larger undertaking than I ever gave a CEO credit for.
Do you look at the VP of sales role now fundamentally differently? Like you now
I do.
believe X about VP of sales that you
Yeah,
didn't before?
I do. And I will tell you, it has to be more than hustle, right? I was one of those guys that just out hustled everybody. And a lot of what I like in the education that you do, Scott, is you teach like, look, there needs to be a process. You need to be smarter nowadays. You need to network. You need to, and the days of me being a brute strength bull in a china shop, we will freaking crush the sales leader. For me as a CEO, I'd never hired that guy now, right? Like I'm looking at it going, look, man, you're going to cause me more problems than I have time to address. And I need you to be strategic. I actually just had this conversation with our team where I said, look, we don't have to do it like everybody's always done it before. Get me a smarter, more efficient, better way to find the right customer at the right time with the right solution. Right? Like stop with the I don't care about 120 dials. I don't care about I don't great. Did you guys get that talk time bonus? Oh, we don't pay a freaking talk time bonus. That's fantastic, right? Like I don't want to hear about that. I want to hear about what you're accomplishing with the customer. So I think I would what I'd lean into the question you asked is I would hold a higher bar for a VP of sales than maybe has been held for myself in the past and what I looked at. And I would also I would value skill, the ability to train, the ability to build culture, the ability to be able to build a talented sales force where maybe I would have said, hey, we don't have an enablement team and I can't spend the time doing this, right? Like I think there's just a different approach to it now.
So you've figured out more deeply on the equation, slowing down to speed up.
100%.
Right.
100%.
Slow is steady and steady is fast, kind of
yes.
a thing. So just out of curiosity, so let's say you had that gung-ho young VP of sales, had the energy you liked, right? You recognized it. And then you saw this potential for vision, right? Because I think that's what you're saying is, hey, I'm going to hire for some potential for vision, not just the hustle and the grind. For those who are listening, like what's one or two little pieces of advice you'd give that VP of sales to recognize a way to go slow is steady, steady is fast, right? What would you encourage them to think about?
I'm actually going to give you a two-part question because I think it's where a lot of CEOs miss as well, right? I'll give you a two-part answer. Speaking from the CEO's point, I gain a lot of satisfaction in having those long, drawn-out conversations at the beginning or the end of the day and explaining why I'm looking at, because I do have a younger group of sales leadership now. And I take the time to say, guys, remember our bigger goal? Here's where we're trying to get there. I take the time to explain it. I didn't have a lot of CEOs in my past that took the time. They were more irritated with the sales leader versus wanting to take. I know. Hey, I'm a very irritating guy. I get it. But that taking the time to explain to you, like, look, here's all the steps you're missing. Help me figure this out. Come in here and partner with me, which is what I'm trying to do a little differently. I still will tell you I fail at it, but I'm trying to do that a little differently. For the VP of sales, I would say take the time to ask those questions around what are the longer term goals and then focus on your efficiency. Just because you have 20 headcount approved doesn't mean you have to go hire 20 heads. Hire 14 that are the right and crush your goal and be efficient, right? Go find the right people. Don't just hire bodies and then look at me and say, well, these aren't the right people. Well, you freaking hired them. They came out of your network, homeboy. Like, what do you want me to do here? Right. I don't understand what we're doing. So I would say really my focus, if I had a young VP of sales that was just trying to go, slow down and focus on efficiency. Focus on all the steps. Where are your guys getting hung up? Why are we not hitting the quota? Why is your guy not getting the pay he needs? Wait a minute. Well, he doesn't set enough. Okay. All right. Have you listened to all those set calls? Can you tell me why he doesn't set enough? Can you tell me why his demos don't show? Can you tell me why when he's on that DM call that not everybody was present that needed to be present? Like the way Scott and you and I were raised, I confirmed when I was sat in the thing, should you be willing to move ahead? Will everyone that needs to be involved in the decision-making process be there, right? Like all those confirmation pieces, I would push on that VP of sales. Look, I love, love, love your vision. Help me be efficient. Don't
All right,
waste a single dollar.
that is good. Now I want to move to the competition portion of the podcast.
Okay.
For those
I'm
who
going to
don't
get beat
know,
by Scott. I'm going to get beat by Scott. I don't. Yeah, yeah.
No. I found two places in the world I can finally beat Scott. One is on the golf course, although I wonder if I still can.
I'm narrowing the gap there. I'm narrowing.
Yeah, you might actually.
I'm still behind. But I'm narrowing the gap.
But here's the thing. For people who don't know, Scott and Luke competed in Austin when they were in VPs of sales roles, and they brought this up earlier. They competed on hiring, right? And I don't know if it was a friendly competition or
always
you guys hated each other.
No, always.
But I'm curious for each of you, how I'm thinking from an advice perspective. When when you're hiring people and they have multiple offers, how do you position yourself to be better? And maybe in this instance, you knew you were competing against someone that you knew, right? And a similar business. In terms of hiring, how did you try to differentiate yourself or your organization?
You want to go first, Scott, or you want me to?
Go ahead.
Scott never goes first because then he wants to respond off of you.
I get it. That's the competitive advantage. I'm going to tell you, I don't ever compete against anybody. And so I'll explain to you what my thought process is there. I am a very passionate, vision-focused person. So I know it's a very competitive landscape. I also, where my business is right now, I'm not paying in the top, 1%. I'm not that guy that's going to be able to beat people on pay. What I like to do is to show you why I get up every morning, what I'm passionate about accomplishing with this business, and why I'd like to have you partner with me. And I feel like having that approach, you're either going to hit a note with the rep where they're like, oh, I actually believe in that, and I'd like to go tackle that. Or they're going to say, may not be a good fit for me. Or I would rather go take the money, because here's the other thing I don't want to do. In 6 months, I don't want to be having a conversation about the money's not right. I want to be having a conversation about, this is we're having you exceed your target every month. You believe in helping our customers, and you believe in the mission that we're trying to accomplish. And I think for me personally, that has been a better way for me to recruit than the days of, for instance, like Main Street Hub, when we were hiring 50 people every month. You didn't have an opportunity to tell them, this is what we passionately believe in. You were taking bodies. So for me today, I like to really, really interject into their world why I took this role, why it's something that's a passion project for me, and why I think you would be interested in being a part of it. And I feel like that's the competitive advantage, because it either resonates or it doesn't. And you get people that really want to be a part of that passion project.
There's a certain degree of overlap, except, and Richard, you probably know this about me, probably what I'm going to say. I'm not a passion, purpose-driven person in terms of the mission of the company.
Right.
I actually don't really care about that, if I'm being completely honest. The purpose of the company for me is different than the purpose of me and my people being there. And that company serves as a vehicle to help me get to where I want to go, and as a vehicle for me to help other people get where they want to go. So I didn't lean into that part, but if I was in a recruiting, war against Luke, my strategy was really also not to compete. I used to just tell people, go work with Luke. Go ahead. It's great. I'll be here if it doesn't work out.
Right.
And I would tell people, if you want to earn the most money possible, guaranteed, like, you should go work at this other place. Well, I used to try to basically get rid of people, and I would follow it up though at the end with, but before you make a decision, I think you should talk to people who work here.
Yes.
Go ask them about what the sale is like, what the pay is like. Go ask them what I'm like. They'll tell you the truth. And I would never prep anybody. I used to tell people, go ahead, leave this office right now. Go walk around the floor. Go talk to whoever you want. Go pester people. And I used to basically have trust and faith that I had done my job well enough that these people that they went and talked to would say something to the effect of, Scott's pretty tough, but I've never learned so much. I've never made so much money. Da 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 da. Like, this is a great proving ground, training ground, or whatever, And so I'd kind of rely on that. So I sort of would try to talk people out of it. And before I let them go, I'd be like, but you should go talk to these other people because I'm pretty sure they're going to say some nice stuff. So
Pretty cool.
That's how I went about it. Is this the part where you tell both of us that we're wrong, Richard?
Yeah, that's
no. This is the part I just want to know who won. How many more did you win from him? But I'm sure you don't know. So
nobody keeps track of these things. I'm sure that we poached people off of each other. Yes. I probably hired people from his side that were terrible that I never should have, and vice versa. Yeah, probably run the whole gamut. Yeah,
I'd agree.
What a more interesting question could be for Luke, since we're in this competitive kind of phase, is I don't know if you know this, Richard, but Luke actually went to work at a place that I used to work after I left.
So he went to clean up your mess?
Well, that's the question, is like, what mess did Scott leave that you had to fix and clean up?
Yeah, a friend of mine once said, the best place to take the job is when you follow the asshole, right? When you come in after following the asshole. So the question
There's been a lot of lucky people that follow me, man. I can tell you that. There's been a whole lot of lucky people.
By contrast, Richard, the worst place to go take a coaching job is right after the legend departs.
Yes, I completely agree. Completely agree. So did he leave you a mess, or did he leave it?
No.
To be fair to both of us, there was other parties in between.
There were. Absolutely, there were.
So it's not like an immediate thing.
Got it.
No, and I would tell you, I've said this to numerous different people. The company that he and I kind of like transitioned through, he got it to one phase. Then they tried a couple of different pieces in between that didn't really work. The framework that he put in place, then I took it to another phase. So I've never felt like there was anything to clean up. What it had was a great sales culture. You had a lot of hustle and a lot of grind in the folks that were like the core people that used to work for Scott, and you had something you could build upon, right? So I don't believe there was any mess because the charter was different. This is where I would challenge a lot of people. I get feisty over this one because I feel like, and I think I've even seen Scott write about this online, is CEOs and founders want to chew sales leaders up, but they use you for your 18 to 24 months of where they want you to take them anyway. And now all of a sudden you're not the right guy. And if we all just had a beer and a cheeseburger together and realized that it's okay for me to not be the right guy, like it's okay. I got you from here to here. Now you need to find another guy to get you from there to there. I don't like it. To me, there's just different skill sets. There's also, I read a report years and years ago, and I've had it come true for me. You have literally 18 months that a group will listen to you and then they stop listening to you. It's the same old voice, right? It's like the mom voice that says, pick up your shoes, pick up your, what are your grades today? And I can't believe you didn't eat dinner. And so I think it requires a change in voice. I think it's probably going to be the same with CEO, right? You're going to get 2, 3, 4 years in and there's going to be a new bright, shiny object and there's a new voice and a new path. And, it goes down. So I've told numerous people there was no mess to clean up. There was a lack of organization that was in place because of the confusion in between the two of us, right? There was just, they needed to get back to basics and get back to selling and get back to, pushing the vehicle forward.
Luke basically just explained the last 14 years of parenthood for you and I.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much.
It's my life.
They paid attention for 18 months and then they've done whatever they want.
Then it's just done.
Completely.
Done. Yes.
Completely.
Yes. It's toast.
So I know we gotta sort of start to wrap it up, but which this has flown by. But we gotta do a little plug. But Luke, when we get back for a second, we want to turn it over to you and let you ask us questions. Although maybe you've asked Scott all the questions in the world. So
I got tons of questions.
I want to thank Brandon over at Peel.ai, getpeel.ai. Check out what they've got going on. It engages with humans in a human way. Audible conversations, learning about their needs really will help you figure out how to communicate with your prospects and customers better. So feel free to do that. And Scott, I know you've got one Then we'll
Yeah,
get back
just
to you.
one more shout out for Tech Sales Accelerator. They've got a collection of courses that deliver a complete blueprint for landing an entry level sales role at a tech company that you love. Get your first promotion to AE, become a consistent 6-figure earner. Check it out at techsalesaccelerator.com. So we're at that portion of the show at the end here, Luke, where we come to our guests and say, how can we be helpful to you? What questions, if any, do you have for us? So fire away.
Yeah, mine's more of it's a philosophy question, and it's I'm not going to put you in my generation or my world. I'm not going to attach you to it. I'm just going to say there's a broadening gap between how I was taught to do sales and how current generation does sales, right?
Oh boy.
And it's because the
Oh
world's
boy.
changed. Oh yeah, yeah. The world's changed. Technology's changed. Tools have changed, and so it requires someone like myself to come to the middle, right? And then it also requires all other groups to come to the middle. And I think that is a challenging piece for me personally to navigate is where's the middle? Like I need more resources. Well, you don't, here's a phone book. Like that's literally how I start selling cars. Here's go through a phone book, right? So that's not the right way to go back to doing it. But like, how have you all seen either yourselves or others really navigate that coming to the middle where an old school hustle and grind is involved and a new way of being more efficient is connected and you have prosperity? I don't know if that makes sense or not.
This is really the theme of my day. This is the third conversation today where we've
Okay.
essentially tried to talk about, finding a middle ground. What is the middle ground? And somebody has said, how do you do it? And I said, well, 335 fucking Americans don't know how to find the middle right now. So it's
Yeah,
spot
exactly.
on par with where we're at. Red state, blue state style. Richard,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
you go first.
No. You've been doing that. You get to go first now.
I
I'm
get
going to
to
build
go
off what
first.
you say.
The old school people, they have some things right, and that is like the use of data, the measurement of metrics, and understanding your KPIs and conversions and all of this kind of stuff, and the ability to coach, train, develop talent from within, being easier in person than remote. However, the nature of some of these things is has evolved and has changed. We can argue till we're blue in the face that in-office sales culture is better. The genie's not going back in the bottle.
No, agreed.
It's just
1,000%.
not. So
Yeah.
we have to find a way to onboard, train, and develop talent better in a remote first kind of environment. That's not on the people entering the workforce to figure out. That's on us as operators to get better at figuring that stuff out. Metrics still matter, numbers still matter, data still matters, but we're not in a world anymore where you can load 500 phone numbers into a spam cannon thing and just cold call like that. We can't send thousands of templated, boring emails out anymore. So hammering people over those metrics don't make sense anymore. There's new metrics that are starting to evolve, like network growth, like partners signed, and things of this nature, right? Content creation, demand gen kind of stuff. Luke, you and I have talked, for example, about how a founder can get out in front and basically become the marketing engine for the company. Right? This type of thing. So to me, that's where the marriage is. If you keep adding on tool after tool after tool and automate people out of all these roles, you're eventually going to end up with no humanity in this process whatsoever. Right. And I personally think that that's probably where we're headed. And when we head that direction, I think the people who are going to stand out the most are the people who do these unscalable human first things, getting in front of individuals again, getting back face to face, refusing to use some of this fancy efficiency technology because I want you to know it's really me, having a conversation with you. I'm going to have to get in front of you, look you in the eye, shake your hand, and so forth. And those types of human first behaviors that don't scale, those are some of the new strategies that are actually old strategies that will
Yeah.
potentially become in vogue again. So a lot of, I spouted off a lot of kind of thoughts and ideas there, but somewhere in there to me is the convergence of the two. And anybody shouting solely for one or the other is
Doesn't
going
work.
to end up being wrong.
Yeah. I'll give you an analogy on why I'm aligned with you 1,000%. And then I don't mean to cut you off there. We literally had this discussion in our office. We're remote, but then we spend Tuesday through Thursday in the office, right? So in that time period, I believe volume of calls still matters. It's a math equation, right? Like if you want to be a better hitter, you got to take more pitches. Like you got to swing the bat. Like it just all these old school things that matter. But where I think a new way, to your point of approaching it, is you can't just go through and make 500 random phone calls. Let's be calculated. Let's take an hour out of the day and let's choose who we're going to call and have a foundation and look at the data and see, who's our top customer. Like, what did they look like? Okay, let's find more like them. Like, I think technology helps us. And then the brute force, you just got to get out and do the hard work too, right? Like that. And we had that conversation in the office. Everybody's like, okay, that is how it merges together. Like, we have to agree to do the hard work in a certain volume, and you have to agree that, look, we need some resources to be able to help us be more efficient and more calculated. Does that kind of resonate, or am I like on the right same page there?
Yeah, no, I think you're on the right same page for sure. I'm with you. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah. So as the probably the only one who's sold since the 1900s who's in this conversation, right? Scott's going to get tired of that joke, but everybody likes it.
I like it. It's the first time I've heard it, so I'm good.
Yeah.
That's why we have the show. So they're new guests, so Richard can tell his joke over and over.
Exactly
I can tell
right.
the same jokes. Like I'm turning into that old man. You know what? It's a little chilly. Can I get a sweater? I need a sweater. Right. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I think the thing that's, again, every time a new technology comes out, everybody rushes to it and ruins it. And it still comes back to the soft skills, in my opinion, the ability to have a conversation, whether it's on the phone or Zoom or in person. How do I have a conversation around using my network rather than, hey, can you introduce me to somebody? Nobody taught us that, right? So there is this need, it's always been there and still will be, to teach people how to, earn the right to ask questions, which questions to ask and when. Like that's the key piece. How you get there is changing. I also think too that people are over-indexing on AI solving the problem, just like they over-indexed on every other technology. And they're even over-indexing on the coaching capabilities, right? Like now there's all these tools that can do all this coaching to the rep live and in the call. And I'm like, yeah, but how many people can really absorb and then respond while paying attention to the customer or the prospect? So there's going to have to be more of that that's required. There's going to be, for lack of a better phrase, I don't know if you call it part of the leader's compensation, but I would hold them accountable to a certain number of coaching hours and training hours.
Absolutely.
And, put that in front of them as part of their comp plan, because that's going to help change the behavior. Right. And you got to find a way that make it authentic, right? You got to find it a way that doesn't force them to not sound like themselves, but still make everybody have the same language and speak the same way and all those things. So I think that's a big piece of where we're headed and what we've got to do. I also think too that, what's happening with the big companies, I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. So if you think about Salesforce, right? Salesforce is going to have a hard time growing new customer revenue. They really are. So what are they going to do? And they're starting to do is they're going to go steal revenue from their partners. If you haven't looked at Agentforce, where they have a bot in there that you can now practice your cold call with while it's in Salesforce and pull that Salesforce data, right? I'm surprised they haven't come out with their own Zoom at this point, but maybe that's one they don't. They're going to go and try and steal the revenue from everybody who's in the App Exchange, right? And so that's what I think is going to happen. So there's this, I wouldn't call it a world of hurt, but we've heard for years that there's going to be this massive consolidation, which has always happened. And it's going to be the person who just steals the most revenue that wins, right? That's sort of where I am.
It's funny. I just had this conversation with my 18-year-old, who's my youngest. He texted me and said, "Do you think I ought to focus on a communications minor?" And I said, oh, you mean a person who only communicates via social media, text message? And yeah,
Right.
I think a communications minor would be fantastic, right? Like I think teaching you how to write an appropriate email or just have a conversation. Yeah, and he's a very personable kid. He's got, but that his generation is if it's not on TikTok or Snapchat or like he'll text you from his bedroom and say, "Can we get pizza?" instead of coming asking you, right?
Oh,
So,
totally.
like, I do think to your point, those soft skills need to be brought back into the equation and taught, and it's from a management level all the way down where that the art of communication, it's just you're not going to replace that with technology. You're not. As long as humans are making the buying decision, you're not going to replace that communication piece with technology.
That's the key piece. As long as humans are making the
buying that's why I put it in there, because I can see us
for how long.
Yeah,
for how long
I can see us getting to a point where if it meets all the algorithm, it's a yes or it's a no, and boom, the decision's made, right? So
the fortunate part of that is that because everything's made in a team decision, there's always going to be at least one person on that team who thinks they're smarter than the algorithm. And they aren't, they're going to want to potentially need to talk about it, maybe internally or externally. So I think that's a big piece that I see. And to your point, I'm having the same conversation with my son, Riley, who's a big movie buff. Scott knows, probably will end up doing something in Hollywood. And he's like, I think I need to go and take a psychology course so that I can understand how people think, to understand
what a great move.
Right. To understand how to be, and he doesn't know what he wants to do,
doesn't matter.
Understand how do you tell the story, right? And understanding the motivations of humans. And I'm like, so one thing I've always said, if I'd have taken some more psychology and I'd be better at sales. So I know Scott did. So
yeah, I did, because I went to
figured it out.
ASU, not U of A.
Right.
Psych 101 is like, an elective, right? It's like PE down at ASU.
Well, listen, some people elect to learn the right things. Well,
that is exactly right.
To focus on the wrong thing. Richard.
Right.
Luke, how can everybody get a hold of you if they want to learn more about you or what you're up to at Signpost?
So the easiest way is lwilson@signpost.com. That's the easiest way. I answer every email, and I pride myself in being very responsive. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn, whether you could challenge whether in a good or bad way, but I try to be out there and at least let you know what Signpost is doing and what we're focused on. So either way is a great place to connect.
All right. Appreciate the time that you spent with us, and appreciate everybody joining us here today on another episode of the Surf and Sales podcast. We will see you next time.
Thanks, Luke. Nice to hang out with you.
Thank you. I appreciate you both.